Welcome to Staffing Stories, hosted by Andy Moss. Andy has been in the staffing industry for over 25 years, first as a recruiter, then eventually an account manager and business owner. This is the podcast where we sit down with fellow staffing owners to get the real stories of the successes, the failures, and the lessons learned along the way.
Welcome back to Staffing Stories. I'm your host, Andy Moss, and I have a special guest with us today, Mark Agostinelli from Boston, Massachusetts. Boston.
And thanks for having me, Andy.
Hey, I'm glad you're with us. And, you know, me and Mark were just joking about the Patriots right now. And, you know, being big football fans, I always like to follow dynasties like that.
I know. I think we're witnessing either the chapter is certainly closing. I don't know if the end of the dynasty is here, but we'll see. I am fortunately I love the Pats, but I'm very lucky to also love the Boston Bruins, who are saving grace at the moment. So
yeah, they're doing good. Well, I'm glad you're with us. Introduce yourself to our listeners that may not know who you are.
Mark Agostinelli. I am born and raised Greater Boston guy. Been in the staffing business now for I think coming up on 15 years. Started as a recruiter, moved into sales and kind of sales leadership, and now I'm in a position where I'm responsible for all of operations at our company here, which is engineering, manufacturing, and IT focused.
Well, you know, it's a great story when you see somebody that started at the bottom, at entry level in our industry, like recruiter up. Walk me through that experience. I mean, 14 years. I mean, you know, we're dinosaurs when we get in that time.
It's wild, right? They're dog years in staffing. My former my mentor used to say. It was wild. I was hired in 2009, and the economy had still not really kicked back from that recession. We've got a mentality here, which is we try to protect the ox. That's what we refer to the organization as. And if we take care of the ox plows the fields and takes care of us. So I was one of the people hired, even though we probably shouldn't have been hiring people in 2009, preparing for the rebound back. And it was a grind, man. I recruited for about 5 or 6 months and then flipped over to sales. And I remember being about a year and a half into staffing. So probably 6 months into sales. I remember I was living with my parents at the time. I remember sitting at the dining room table, just being like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work. And I remember my dad, or maybe it was my mom, but I think it was my dad, was like, you know, the beginning of any career kind of just sucks.
Yeah.
He's like, he goes, try to parse if it's the job that sucks or if it's just hard right now and stay with it. And I'm so glad he did. I remember my GP was at 3,000 or 4,000 at the time, and a year later skyrocketed. So it was a happy that I stuck with it, but the beginning was definitely rough for sure.
Well, you know, I try to tell my recruiters is like you're planting seeds now as a young recruiter that you're going to reap later. Don't leave when the reaping comes. It's like you're wasting your time if you think you're going to bail out in a year, 6 months, because it's just the good stuff happens for all the hard work you're running your head into a wall with right now.
It's a process. It is a process, and you got to the mentality we use internally is first downs, not touchdowns. For the football guy, right? Just be happy with the first down, right? Did you get people on the phone today? Were they good? And what'd you learn? So it's certainly a challenge.
So do you hire individuals to be recruiters and just find your salespeople from that, or do you hire them with sales in mind and recruiting is the byproduct of that?
Both.
Okay.
Ultimately, both. I would say, like when I was hired, it was very clear that Mark was going to get into sales pretty quickly. That was what I expressed that I wanted to do in my career, but they were like, you can't really sell unless you recruit. And we still believe in that mentality. So I would say a little bit of both. I mean, both on the We hire recruiters that turn into salespeople. We hire salespeople, but we want them to recruit first. And we also hire experienced salespeople. But I do really, when we're hiring experienced salespeople, one of the biggest things I look for is like, do they understand how the recruiting desk runs?
Yeah.
It's certainly, there's the empathy component, but then there's just a full on understanding of how it works too.
Yeah. Unless you have just an ungodly amount of contacts within a sector of business that, IT being specific or manufacturing, it's you need to sit and run that desk because you're going to ask somebody to do something that someone should have asked you, and you got to feel it. But the reason I ask you that question is like, we struggle with hiring a little bit of, we find a person that's a great recruiter. We just don't see necessarily the sales piece in them, but we need solid anchored recruiter.
Yeah.
But I know some companies just like they hire sales no matter what. They make you recruit, and it's that they want to get you up and going.
It's a challenge. I would say the other challenge we run into on that, Andy, is like people who are recruiters or sales and they want to become leadership and management. I think earlier in my tenure at Davis, we didn't do the best job having difficult conversations and putting people back in individual contributor roles because it felt so much like a demotion.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten better at being like, look, man, play to your strengths. And we do certainly have comp plans that allow our top performers to be our top earners too, which I think certainly helps that. Management isn't just the path of cash, but Andy, I'm not going to lie, I don't have it figured out.
Yeah. If individuals can park their ego, everything works. But if you attach your ego to, I just was in sales or something, like we treat sales and recruiting as equals with GP. It's split 50-50. There's not one that gets more than the other. And that's kind of how we do it, but it works because recruiting is the heartbeat of our organization. And
that's our product.
Everything revolves around that. But so when you look at your organization over the years, you've seen it change from technology, from people. What's shocked you, or what's kind of energized you over the course of your career?
Yeah, it's I will say that technology is cool. I think that AI being the latest, obviously, kind of thing that everyone's talking about, right? We were at Staffing World. It was AI all day long. And I'm, you lovingly called us dinosaurs after 15 years in. I'm starting to feel like the old man on the front porch being like, it doesn't matter about the technology. The business is still the business. And I think learning from people who have been at Davis longer than I, and are in our industry longer than I, like those were the same types of conversations when Monster and Career Builder came about these threats to the industry. And ultimately it's going to change, but I think the connection with people and the consulting is what hasn't changed. I do think technology's made the job, has made the mundane tasks in the job easier. I do also think that some of our hopes for technology have not helped. Like still to this day, I was laughing and talking about someone else. I mean, just the time card chasing process is still something that no matter how much technology you put in it, we're still dealing with it. So I love it. I think as I've grown, certainly in our industry, and matured in our industry, the more that technology has evolved, the more I think I've understand what our value prop is to the industry, right? Like what are we really doing for people?
We're never going to get away from the phone.
Correct.
And you can use smoke signals, you can do bat signals, you can do whatever, but you got to get somebody on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that I am just, we get too caught up into texting and, stuff like, and I think those are great reach outs, but you've got to have a conversation and build that, what I call, you got to get yourself on the Christmas card list for this candidate.
I like that.
That's how they have to think of you as a trusted advisor. And that's the way I approach things. But again, it's just seeing a company grow over 14 years. You've seen the good, you've been through a couple recessions. I mean, you're hardened by now.
Yes, the phone, it's a people business, and I'm with you on. I think the technology helps you potentially get more people on the phone, but you got to make a connection, and you can't do that through other mediums.
What road paths do you have right now that you're kind of focused on, or like kind of things that excite you at Davis Company that you're jazzed up about?
I do think that a lot excites me. I think that this was a very difficult year in staffing, just straight up. And I'm excited. I was excited by some of the stress cracks it showed in our business. I mean, we got battle tested this year and learned what we needed to deal with. And I'm excited that we've dealt with a lot of that, are still dealing with some of it. But next year, I'm not overly optimistic about the market changing next year, but I'm optimistic about our ability to manage our business in this market. And that's exciting.
Well, election years are always interesting in our work, but I'm of the phase like no one politically wants to mess up, be the side that screws things up. So I think next year is going to be, it's going to be tough. Like you said, if we had to work 20% harder this year to get our business, we're going to have to work 40% harder next year to get our business.
I agree. But I am excited about, again, I think we've got some teams that are really coming together through it. I think that, like I mentioned stress cracks earlier, like you said, you treat sales and recruiters equally, 50-50, same in our business. But for us, what we notice is the businesses that view it as Davis customer candidate, we're one organism as a company. Those are the groups that are doing the best. So I'm not that excited about the market. I'm really excited about our ability and how we're positioned to tackle the market. Like I think this market, you said it, recruiting's our heartbeat.
Yeah,
we're damn good at recruiting, and that to me is a competitive advantage right now.
Do you all struggle with attrition?
Yes, internally.
Yeah,
100%.
I think a lot of companies are struggling with that. What do you contribute that to?
I definitely put it in two different buckets. I think there's the attrition of like people who are less than 2 years in our industry or our business. And like I alluded to in my first 14 months, I had my own 18 months. I had my own second guesses of if I would have done it. So when people turn over in the first 2 years, I'm a little more, I'm less surprised. I'm less surprised because you really don't know what you're getting into. Now the turnover, and I would say proudly, we don't have a lot of turnover after 2 years.
Yeah,
we don't. And that to me is a good thing. I'm okay with there being a little bit of churn in the early phases. I kind of look at it as like there's a practice squad and people are making it up to the team and down to the team and figuring it out. But turnover after 2 years is something that we do a decent job of protecting. I think by that point in time, they know what staffing is.
Yeah.
And it helps. I'll tell you, during the pandemic in particular, we hired quite a few people who were disenfranchised by their current staffing firms. Just the way in which certain things were handled during the pandemic, that wasn't necessarily people-centric, and they were 15, 20, 25-year vets in our business. And so when they got here, we were excited because we thought we were just scooping excellent talent. I'd say one of the wonderful things that it's helped is it's really helped the younger generation or people like myself. I've never worked at another staffing company other than the Davis companies.
Yeah.
Good perspective for people like me because they're so happy to be here and they can tell other people that. So it's like, it helps a little bit with that grass is greener mentality. But I'd be lying if I told you I had it figured out.
Well, I don't think anybody has it figured out. I've asked my team to fail fast. That's
same.
all.
Same.
If we made the wrong call, just say I made.
I mean, we're in sales, man. Like it is recruiting, right? But if you think about the archetype of who we hire, it's a sales job, and sales has incredibly high turnover, regardless of what industry it is. So, I think there's a lot of spiritual and personal discovery that happens when you gotta build your own network and make money with your phone every day. You figure out who you are.
So you're a fellow podcaster with Beers and Careers.
Yes.
Let's talk a little shop. How'd you get into that and how's it going?
I know. Well, I think I gotta reciprocate soon and get you on the podcast so you can really experience it here. But Beers and Careers was inspired because when I was selling, I sold mainly manufacturing and engineering.
Okay.
So much of my network became VPs of HR, operations, engineering, and manufacturing. Right, that was the network. And I was always shocked how I was meeting people, mainly in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, who were in these roles, loving what they were doing. But when I finally got them out for dinner or drinks or even just, on the phone deep, I found out that they had no idea that this was what they were going to be when they grow up. At 20 years old, they had no idea. And sometimes at 35, they had no idea. And I just thought to myself, I grew up with a mom who was very much like, experience everything, don't worry about it. And a dad where every time I got home from college was like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And my mom would be like, stop asking him that. He doesn't know. It was funny, right? And so, but I thought to myself, man, if I could just document these people's career paths in a pretty casual way, just to help inspire people. That's like, look, if you don't have it all figured out, it's fine. Life generally takes care of itself. And there are lessons along the way through mentorship, understanding your strengths. There's certainly some commonalities people can pull and self-reflect on. But that was really the genesis of it, and what we sought out to do. So,
but it's almost, I always wanted to learn from others in my industry, and I was seeking that. Not everybody writes a book, but
right.
But I was like, man, we just need to have a podcast just asking questions to other staffing leaders of, what's the secret sauce? What do you think? And it's been so cool to peel the banana back a little bit to get what these individuals think and kind of let the guard down. And I've really, really get, jazzed about it.
It is cool. I'm always, growing up in athletics, and you think about your competition, you don't want to share anything with your competition. And it's been, that was certainly my mentality as an early manager. And then you learn that basically you're willing to share 98% of what you talk about with your competition, because everyone's kind of in it together. And I think that I just comment and say I've been shocked at how welcoming people are to sharing information with you through roundtables, industry events. It's been a wonderfully pleasant surprise that I wouldn't have expected as a 24-year-old kid.
It's a fraternity.
It is.
It's a fraternity that we all been there and done that. I think if we were struggling, we would all chip in, like, hey, what's going on? Especially the ones that we all see each other, ASA, SIA. I mean, it's just like, where's this guy? Where's this girl?
Yeah.
But I love that. And I've not had anybody on this podcast say, I can't tell you that. It's, ask me anything. I don't care. I'm an open book.
Yeah. It's very cool that people are like that. And it just makes you want to give more, right? I mean, that's kind of.
Well, there's some young people that need encouragement in our industry, and they need to know, okay, I've been there, and you're going to be fine.
Yes.
I came from the age where we were actually using a phone book and paper resumes and scanning everything in. We didn't have any of the tech we've got now. But I do think some of the hardcore recruiting skills we did when we sat in the seat are lost a little bit because we lean too much on some of these things. I mean, we didn't have Indeed, we didn't have ZipRecruiter, we didn't have LinkedIn. I mean, it was truly asking for referrals and stuff.
It's interesting too, because I think what's the most dangerous thing that can happen nowadays too is you ride a market wave that's 3-6 months, anything, and you get lucky on LinkedIn or Indeed over a period of time, and that becomes the path in which you believe you get all your candidates. And I think I had the benefit, I'm an elder millennial technically. I had the benefit of kind of seeing the business transition through like the advent of some newer technology, but still such an emphasis on the database. Yeah. Right. The database. And so, the lessons that people that I lean on, in this building still to this day, who have, twice as many years of experience than me, I think there's a lot of truth in that you can apply to your day to
Yeah.
day. And yeah, I'm telling you, man, I'm becoming an old man on the front porch. I still refuse to do the click to dial thing. I'm like, no, I want a phone.
Yeah.
Took me about 2 months to memorize where the phone numbers actually are, so I don't have to look at the phone. That's a skill I got to keep sharp. So
Yeah, I like that. All right, so you look like you played a little lacrosse.
I did.
How did sports develop you into what you are now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What's funny is I was a better lacrosse player for sure than any other sport I played, and lacrosse took me very far. I got to play in Australia for a little while, and it definitely changed it changed what I thought a sport could do for you, and the relationships that I built, and I feel so indebted to that game to give back. But I think when it comes to like the formative years of how athletics shaped who I am as a person, there were definitely moments playing college lacrosse, but high school hockey for me was probably more personal development. I was fortunate to go to a Catholic prep school. This is an era before schools cost, $60,000 a year to go.
Yeah.
And it was one of those schools where all boys, and 60 kids tried out for the freshman hockey team, and 120 kids tried out for a 20-person team. And the intensity and the preparedness to do that was huge. I made the team. I made varsity as a junior, and I did not play. Like straight up 2 games. I might have been on the ice a total of 10 to 15 times. And I remember, it being an absolute slog, and something that I got depressed about it. Like I had my self-worth tied up in it. And I had good mentorship from my family being like, you can either wallow in this or you can go get better. Right. Yeah. And I worked at a hockey camp, ironically enough. And I used to get there early and work on stuff. And then I'd be on the ice for 4 hours and then go to the gym. And it was just like a wild routine all summer long. Next year, played first line, made the Catholic Conference All-Star. Like it couldn't have been polar opposites. And it kind of cemented in my brain that like the obstacle is the way. Yeah. And if I put my nose down, I can do things, but you got to put in the work. And so like when I actually am kind of up against things, it's certainly an experience I draw from, but also look to for strength in when times are tough.
Yeah. And you probably look back on some of the coaches you had, how they formed you. I mean, I had a guy, literally, he was a screamer. Like I told somebody the other day, I had secondhand dip syndrome because dip would be sprayed all over me. And, and I was played football and baseball, but it was just like, but he also loved on you. But it's just like kids these days have not had that experience. And,
definitely a different time. It's funny. To answer your question, yes, I had phenomenal coaches. I mean, I can't remember some of their names, but even I remember being like a fourth grader and having these hockey coaches that were like guys that were just volunteering, and they were, to your point, just kick-ass people who were like who really loved the game. So now I coach hockey and lacrosse for my sons, and it's a different world. It's definitely a different world, and I try to maintain as much of that old school attitude.
If you could just take the parents out of it
as possible,
everything would be fine.
It's a fine line to walk. It's a fine line. It's a fine line to walk. But yeah, you're impacting kids, right? And at the end of the day that the way I've looked at it is I don't want to be. I don't need to be the coach that they love the most, but I want to be the coach they remember for helping them. That's how I look at it.
All right. So let's wrap up here. What initiatives are you at Davis Company, looking at or trying to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's that different than the other organizations in our industry, but we're living the who moved my cheese moment right now, right? Like I think we've had phenomenal, solid customers for years. I think that we've, if I had to make we've got customers that aren't hiring at the rate that they used to hire. However, they'll probably come back when the economy turns. And so right now it's new logos for us and finding where people are hiring, because people are hiring, just not in the same places that they were previously. So sales. Companies grow when they acquire new logos, and that's the mentality right now.
I love it. All right, so what's your streaming show on Netflix, Apple? What's the show you watch?
So I'm the worst. All my friends make fun of me when they say, "What's your favorite show?" I will honestly tell you, I'm one of those guys who doesn't watch a ton of TV, but I do watch the Bruins with my kids. That's what that's our jam.
That's your thing.
We watch some hockey at night. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, I appreciate you being on the hot seat with me here on Staffing Stories, and thank you for being vulnerable a little bit, and really appreciate it.
No worries, Andy. Thanks for having me on, man. Pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into the episode. Staffing Stories is brought to you by 3D-IQ. We are the future of staffing sales. Our solutions are designed to supercharge your sales and 3x placements, all without ever leaving Bullhorn. Direct market, deliver talent, and drive sales with our all-in-one tool designed for the modern recruiter. Visit 3diq.com/stories to learn more. Find Staffing Stories on LinkedIn, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.